Now, I think it's safe to say that most of us have been disappointed by a LEGO Star Wars set before, either a set that was really hyped up and simply just didn't live up to the hype, or a longer awaited remake that was significantly worse than its predecessor. And I took to my community tab and asked you guys what you guys think were some of the most disappointing LEGO Star Wars sets ever made, and it got a decent number of comments. And this first one comes from Falcon. He says, "For me, it must be the Battle of Peridia set with Thrawn in it. It's such a lackluster build with horrible stickers. It's just basically figs with a few bricks, and even this thing is LEGO exclusive." Now, I'm not sure what you mean at the end where you say LEGO exclusive, because in the US at least, this thing is definitely available at Walmart and Target. But regardless, yes, when this set came out, a lot of people were disappointed, and the main reason was because of the build, like you said, and also just because it was overpriced. This thing retails for $55, and it's not worth $55 at all. I don't think the build is downright terrible. I do think the columns look pretty cool. However, besides the columns, there's literally nothing else going on. And like you mentioned, there are a crap ton of stickers on this thing, like massive stickers that are very tedious and take a while to put on. And when this set initially surfaced as a rumor in early 2024, it was super hyped up because it was going to be the first set to include Thrawn since 2017, and it was also initially rumored to include Enoch, which got a lot of people excited. And then once we got closer to the actual release of the set, the rumor changed and it turned out it wasn't going to include Enoch anymore, which disappointed a lot of people, but everyone was like, okay, well, at least it still has Thrawn. And also keep in mind, we hadn't seen the build yet, so we were thinking Thrawn and a good build, but then the set actually got revealed. We saw that it had Thrawn, but the build itself was nothing much for $55. At the time, it was like we finally got a Thrawn remake after what had been 7 years, but at what cost? Because it's $55 and the rest of the build is not appealing at all. And since then, I'm pretty sure most of the community has kind of just stopped caring about this set. Now, the next set is kind of a no-brainer for a lot of people. This was mentioned in the comments multiple times, and that's the 2016 Turbo Tank. Sparky Stud says, "The 2016 Turbo Tank, I remember my cousin had the one before with Cad Bane, and I was so excited to get the 2016 one and play with both of them, then I got it and was just really disappointed. It was laughably smaller with little to no usable interior space. If minifigs ever carried a set, it would be that one." And yes, what you said at the end there about the minifigures is definitely true. This set has Commander Gree, Quinlan Voss, and Luminara Unduli, all three of which are very sought after figures. But setting the figures aside, like Sparky said, this set is laughably smaller than the 2011 model, and that's the reason a lot of people did not like this when it came out. And I know that now we're used to sets being downsized, but in 2016, LEGO was not downsizing sets. It was a huge disappointment to see that this one was significantly smaller than the older one. However, I do have to say, I don't think the build is bad. I actually think the build is great. It's just simply smaller. There's nothing inherently wrong with the details or the proportions. Like Sparky mentioned, there's not much interior space, but on the exterior, it looks really good. It's just smaller, which at the time, again, disappointed a lot of people. Now, the next set I want to briefly talk about is the 2016 Death Star, and if you're a New Age fan that didn't collect before 2020, you might not really understand why this is on the list, but this comment on the post from Nolas says, "The 2016 Death Star definitely, hoping it doesn't happen again this year." And what he's saying is basically that back in 2016, when rumors for this set initially surfaced, we really didn't have any idea that it was going to be pretty much a straight up re-release of the 2008 model. And for the years following this set's release, it became very popular. A lot of people loved this thing, everyone was buying it, but when it initially released, we were expecting a brand new Death Star design. We weren't expecting just a re-release pretty much. And not to mention, it also costed $100 more than the 2008 model, which at the time had the community in a wad. But still, the disappointment and hate towards this set was only initially when it released, like its first few months of being out. Now, regarding the second half of this comment saying, hoping it doesn't happen again this year, meaning that he hopes the $1,000 Death Star coming in October doesn't have this same design again. And I think it's safe to say that it's not going to have the same design. LEGO is finally going to give us a new Death Star. And when I say new Death Star, I think it's going to have plates on the outside and it's going to be covered up. It's not going to have an exposed interior like the older ones do. And also not to mention, if you've been keeping up the rumors, the piece count just leaked and it has 9,000 pieces, which is literally more than double the piece count of the 2016 one. So I think that right there should tell you enough. Next up, I have another no-brainer that people mentioned a lot on that post, that being the First Order AT-ST. And I mean, it kind of just speaks for itself. It's literally a headless AT-ST. It's ugly. There was no reason for LEGO not to make the full walker and include the head. And at the time, yeah, a lot of people were kind of excited for a First Order AT-ST because in the movie, they look really awesome. But then the set came out and it literally didn't have a head. It was just legs. And since then, it has gone down as one of the worst LEGO Star Wars sets ever made. The LEGO Star Wars community can definitely be very toxic at times, and we definitely don't agree on everything. But I think regarding this set specifically, we can all come together and agree that it's garbage. Whoop says, "The newest TX-130 Saber Tank. The build is so sloppy. The only reason to buy it is Mace and his clones. I wish the build itself was better, more detailed, more play/Easter egg features, and more accurate." And yes, I 100% agree with this. This was actually the only comment that mentioned mentioned this set, which honestly kind of surprised me. But yes, when talking about just the build itself, it is pretty lackluster compared to the previous two. As many of us know, the 2008 model is one of the most beloved Clone Wars sets. It's not necessarily accurate because it's super oversized, but at least the shaping, especially for the year, was done really well, and it also just looks awesome. And then you have the 2017 model, which I personally think is the best of the three because it's not oversized and it's also pretty much 100% accurate to what we see in Battlefront 2. And both of these sets were super popular amongst the community, especially the 2008 model. So when we were going to get a new one in 2022, everybody was excited, and then we got this. Compared to the other two, like the comment said, the build is pretty sloppy. I mean, this thing borderline resembles a 4+ set. There's two main issues I have with it. One is the use of the X-Wing cockpit windshield piece right there on the front. It just creates this big bulge that's unnecessary. And my second problem is the flat sides on the whole area. It just makes it look too cookie cutter. And when you look at the other models, it's not like that. There's lots of slope pieces and lots of great shaping. And on this one, the sides are just completely flat and it makes it look sloppy. Although again, that's specifically the build itself. Like Whoop said, the main reason to get this set was for Mace and his clones. And that's why a lot of people did get this set. This set was extremely popular just for the minifigure lineup. I mean, they're purple clone troopers and they just look awesome. And also, not to mention, this was the last set to have clone troopers without helmet holes. But regarding the build, yes, it was very disappointing. Now, this next one is gonna be kind of controversial, but it's one I pretty strongly agree with, and that is the UCS sail barge. And Andrew here goes so far to say it was the biggest disappointment of 2024. And I'm not gonna lie, that's not too far off in my opinion. Now, this set is nowhere near downright bad. It's cool for the most part. It's a giant Lego Star Wars build. That's what people like. But for a $500 UCS set like this, I just think there were some standards that it didn't quite meet. And I'd say the thing with this set that personally disappointed me the most was the minifigure lineup. Specifically the fact that we just didn't get enough unique aliens and more of Jabba's goons. The three that are included are alright, except there's no leg printing on them, and this is a $500 UCS set. But I just wish we got more. I wish this got the MBS Mos Eisley treatment with just so many figures that you could fill up this entire build. But no, there's only 3 random aliens and then the Gamorrean, I guess if you want to include him. And for a $500 set like this, which is already overpriced, the build doesn't feel like $500, these 4 aliens just simply aren't enough. There should be more. Now, as for the build goes, I think it looks good for the most part. I do think towards the middle area on the sides, it gets kind of bland and repetitive with just the repeated windows, but other than that, the build is good. Really, the main thing that disappointed me with this is just the figures. We should have got more of them. I wish there were more unique aliens. And also, like I said, it was overpriced. $500 for this is not the greatest deal. Anyways though, next up is the 2014 MTT, and this is probably the biggest no-brainer on this list. It got multiple comments. I mean, when it comes to list about quote-unquote disappointing sets or bad remakes, etc., this one is always included. However, this is a bit of an interesting one because yes, it's worse than the 2007 model. However, I personally think the 2007 model kind of just set the standard too high, and this set, and honestly every other MTT that's gonna be made from now on, is just gonna have too big of shoes to fill, and they're never gonna be as good as that 2007 model. This comment from Joey also kind of touches on this. He says, the 2014 MTT, I get what it was supposed to represent, but compared to the quality and goatedness of the greatest set of all time, I don't think many things can compare, unfortunately. Now, I'm not gonna say this is the greatest set ever made. It's close, and a lot of you guys might think so, but I personally don't, but you still get the point. But despite the 2007 model setting the standard very high, the 2014 model is definitely not perfect. There are some things they could have done better. One is just the size. They made this $90. It should have been over 100, maybe around 120. If it was that price, it would have been bigger and would have been able to hold more battle droids, and maybe not 20 like the older one, but at least more than it does. The shaping's also not that great compared to the original, and there are a few large gaps here and there. So those things I definitely think could have been done better. But in terms of comparing it to the 2007 model, I just think the bar was set too high for it, which is kind of ironic to say because LEGO are the ones that set the bar, but the point still stands. Anyways though, the last set to talk about is kind of the elephant in the room with this video, and that's of course the ARC 170 that just released. This was by far the most commented set on the community post, and I mean, it's for good reason. We waited 15 years for this set, and in that time period of us waiting since the 2010 model release, it was arguably one of the most, if not the most, requested remake from the fanbase to LEGO. Everyone wanted a new ARC 170, and they gave it to us, and compared to the previous models, especially the 2010, it's just not good. First of all, obviously the main issue is that it's super downsized. It's got 100 more pieces than the 2010 model, however, it's significantly smaller. The length of it from front to back is actually kind of fine. The real problem is just the wingspan. The wings need to be a lot longer. I also don't think the wings open far enough, and not to mention the cannons on the wings are too short, and the sprinkler shooters just make them look awful. And honestly, like what I mentioned with the Republic fighter tank earlier, I'm gonna go so far to say this also borderline resembles a 4+ set. From how small it is to the wings to the spring-loaded shooters, it just doesn't look that great. John McGregor put it best here. He says, easily the ARC 170. We got 3 perfect figs plus a new R4 P44, but the build is just sad. For about 100 more pieces, we see a terrible downgrade at the very least. It's small, the cannons are disgustingly inaccurate, especially that spring-loaded shooter, and the wings are just too short. It looks flat out ugly. And then he says, edit, forgot about the discolored windshield stickers, another blunder on LEGO's part. And the price, of course, is terrible. Basically, everything he said is everything that's wrong with this set. Now, the 2010 and especially the 2005 models are not perfect. They're great sets, but they're not perfect. However, they're still a lot better than this new one. And no, that's not just nostalgia blindness, they're genuinely more appealing sets. And after 15 years, LEGO could have done a lot better than this. Anyways, guys, those are some of the most disappointing LEGO Star Wars sets ever made. Let me know what you think about this list down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see them on the screen right now.